All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Welcome to our press conference on the recent increase of trade-related job loss in Oregon. My name is Hillary Hayden. My last name is spelled H-A-D-E-N. I'm here today representing the Oregon Fair Trade Campaign, which is a statewide coalition of labor, environmental, and community organizations working together to improve U.S. trade policy, and I'll be moderating for today's event. I want to give a brief overview of our new report's findings, and then I'll turn it over to Nathan Aldrich, who is a former machinist, and John Irvine, the workforce liaison at the Oregon AFL-CIO, who will help explain what those numbers mean to Oregon's working families and communities in real terms. After they've had a chance to speak, we'll open it up to your questions. I will admit we're sort of new to Zoom technology, but I'm hoping if folks type that they have a question in the box, I'll be able to unmute them and have you ask your question. So, for our report, we compiled and reviewed data from the federal government's Trade Adjustment Assistance Program, known by the acronym TAA. TAA provides extended unemployment benefits to a subset of workers that the U.S. Department of Labor certifies as having lost their jobs to offshoring or from displacement by imports. The Labor Department data is more reliable than most of the job loss and job creation numbers because it provides an actual count of jobs lost at actual work sites, rather than relying on economic modeling to come up with that estimate. That said, TAA also significantly undercounts the total number of trade-related job losses, both because the program only covers certain types of jobs and because someone needs to proactively complete a detailed application for those displaced workers to receive TAA assistance. With that in mind, the Oregon TAA numbers are actually particularly concerning. The most troubling trend uncovered in our analysis is that trade-related job loss has been on the rise in recent years. Oregon experienced a 113% increase in trade-related job loss over the last 3 years in comparison to the 3 prior years. So there were 11,396 job losses certified under TAA between 2017 and 2019. Between 2014 and 2016, there were 9,971. Oregon also experienced a 147% increase in trade-related job loss in 2019 over 2018. Also, surprisingly, the analysis revealed that despite being the 27th largest state in the country by population, Oregon has the highest trade-related job loss from 2017 to 2019 when we measure it by population. The increase in trade-related job loss has been felt in every corner of the state, and a wide variety of industries, from steel and forest products to semiconductors and call centers. Cities and towns with more than 100 trade-related job layoffs in the last 3 years include Beaverton, Bend, Coos Bay, Dillard, Elgin, Eugene, Hillsborough, Klamath Falls, Lake Oswego, Milton Freetwater, Portland, Roseburg, Salem, Springfield, Tualatin, West Lynn, White City, and Wilsonville. The growing number of trade-related layoffs in Oregon over the last 3 years is particularly remarkable because it comes during a period when government officials claim to be taking action to balance international trade and protect American jobs. The U.S. trade deficit in goods has increased in recent years, reaching $852 billion in 2019, according to data from the U.S. Census Bureau. If Oregon is going to stop hemorrhaging more and more jobs overseas week after week and year after year, we need our federal officials to stop adopting pro-offshoring policies like January's U.S.-China trade deal. And we also need to get serious about prioritizing the needs of working families in trade negotiations. Both of those things might sound like common sense, but we still have a long way to go. So to describe Oregon's increase in trade-related job loss and what those things mean in real terms, first I want to turn it over to Nathan Aldrich to share. Go ahead, Nathan.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, I just kind of had, I've been affected by all of this, and some of my job history starts back, and actually you said Roseburg. That's where I grew up, was Roseburg, Oregon, in the Dillard area, and was affected even down there. Moved from Roseburg area up to the Portland area to relocate for better jobs, to go to schooling. I started working at Blount Incorporated roughly 2004, and got into the machining program, and started going to Clackamas Community College for the manufacturing degree program. Worked there till about 2015, and was impacted by layoff, and seen while I was there at Blount, we seen several layoffs. Several people were impacted there, several hundreds, um, from after, let's see, after I got laid off at Blount in 2015. Went back to Clackamas Community College to finish my degree in manufacturing technology. Um, and that was helped out by TAA, thank God, because that helped me get into Boeing. Um, and so I finished my degree, got into Boeing, and now we're having the same issues at one of the largest aerospace manufacturers in the world. So yeah, it's a little frustrating, but I've got some really good experience with manufacturing and the trade, but it is definitely suffering, and I've seen it since. I mean, it's been going on since early 2000s or even before that, but I have noticed it even more so right about the 2015-ish. It has been on a rise. So um, so yeah. So um,
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add, Nathan?
um, no, not really. If anybody has any questions, whenever we do have the questions, I'll be more than willing to go into a little more detail about Trade Act and um, the benefits and how it's been a huge benefit to have. So yeah,
Awesome. Thanks so
yeah.
much, Nathan. Let me go ahead and hand it off to John Irvine of the Oregon AFL-CIO. John?
Hey, good morning, everyone. So I am the state workforce liaison. I run our displaced worker program and our workforce investment program. I do this in conjunction with Oregon's Office of Workforce Investment. 2008, I was a displaced, highly skilled worker myself and a Trade Act recipient. It was an incredible program at the time. I was raising my children on my own and didn't look like my job was coming back. So Trade Act allowed me to get into a nursing program, an LPN program, and I was able to maintain my unemployment benefits. Plus, there's so many other supportive services. You know, in addition to Trade Act, we try to co-enroll people in what's called Title 1B, which is Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act money. So for things that Trade Act doesn't cover, say I need 4 new tires to get to school or to work, that money would come in there. Nathan is an interesting case. So this is his second time an employer he's worked for in the last 5 years has been impacted by trade and has a certified TAA petition. The interesting thing about Boeing, so another part of my job is I assist the unions in writing these Trade Act petitions when they're affected here in the state of Oregon, and work in conjunction with my partners in Washington to do the same thing. A number of these Boeing employees, for example, some were Trade Act affected when Daimler laid off a number of years ago, used their Trade Act to go to school to become machinists, went to Boeing, and now here we are again. They're impacted by trade, and I don't really ultimately think that was the original intent. I don't think anyone envisioned that our workers would be going through a number of employers only to get retrained and back into another employer who is negatively affected by our trade policies. And so I'm really glad that Hillary put this report together, because I think it highlights some of the big issues that we have, right? Nothing replaces good, solid manufacturing jobs right here in the state of Oregon. And when we lose those, I mean, the economic impact, whether it's tax revenue, supportive services, all those things are impacted. And, like I said, it's kind of ridiculous to have workers who keep getting put back into Trade Act only to find another high skilled job and lose it. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Hillary.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, John. Before I open up to questions, I want to just say that the reasons Oregon's increase in trade-related job losses has happened will likely vary community by community, but before things get better, we actually need our federal government to stop making some of this stuff worse. Not only have our federal officials failed to rectify the underlying causes of our country's long-term trade imbalances, but actions they've taken in recent years have been actively promoting offshoring. I want to cite two examples for folks before we go to Q&A. So first, the December 2017 tax law actually incentivizes the offshoring of Oregon manufacturing jobs. One of the many ways the so-called Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 reduces taxes for big corporations was by creating a significantly lower tax rate for firms that move production from the US to other countries. Under that new tax law, if a US company paid a 21% corporate tax rate on profits from goods made in Oregon, their income earned offshore would be taxed at only a 10.5% rate. That's a major incentive for corporations to move production to other countries. That's just one example of how our federal policy is incentivizing offshoring. Another example is the recent US-China trade deal that actually makes it safer for big corporations to offshore Oregon jobs. So large sections of that so-called Phase 1 China trade deal signed in January were about making relocation of jobs to China safer for big employers, neglecting to even mention or address the abysmal labor rights, forced labor, weak environmental standards, and other related causes of job offshoring to China. The top bullets in the US Trade Representative fact sheet on that deal were about protecting intellectual property and stopping technology transfer, items that large corporations demanded to feel safer in moving production to China. To end those trade-related job losses in Oregon, the government needs to stop adopting these pro-offshoring measures, and then it needs to get serious about putting the interests of working families at the center of our trade negotiations. We should protect existing jobs in Oregon, build new markets for Oregon goods and services, lift wages at home and abroad with trade policies that mandate strong and internationally recognized labor and environmental standards and have enforcement mechanisms. We should also explicitly allow for joint labor activities across borders, including collective bargaining, and we should be much more serious about enforcing bans on forced labor. Similarly, we should support the creation of new jobs in industries with trade policies that allow for public procurement, tariff investment, and other industrial policies. The growing trade-related job loss in Oregon is not inevitable, but it won't stop until our trade policy changes. With that said, I want to open it up to questions. Again, if you have a question, you can go ahead and put that you have a question in the box and I will unmute you. I think I have figured out how to do it. So go ahead if you have a question. Anyone? Any questions? Okay. If folks don't have questions, I will be sending that report out to all of you as soon as we get off the Zoom call. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to John and Nate for making time to do this morning, and we'll be in touch. Thanks, everyone.